Hello, space friends. Captain Snuggles here, back in X4 Foundations with a quick test of the 9.0 public beta. The Empire update increases the mechanical complexity of fleet combat, along with a bunch of more traditional rebalancing and AI improvements, and I've been saying that the sum total of the changes is going to incentivize players to use more complex fleets and strategies. I'd like to test that statement, but it's not exactly easy to quantify, so this video is going to straddle the line between qualitative and quantitative. I ran a nice replicated quantitative test as a case study to help me make a qualitative assessment of the value of increasing fleet complexity. It's up to you to decide whether you think my case study and my assessment are representative of the broader game. I'm focusing on high-attention ship-to-ship combat because that's what this update focuses on. A lot of people have questions about station demolition and low-attention combat, which is fair, but for now, I want to just look at the main subject of the update. For my test, I chose my usual enemy targets, Xenon sector defense fleets. 9.0 changes the arrangement of early game fleets, so I've had to move to a new testing location, Matrix number 9. The enemies here are an unescorted K, a K with escorts, and an IKK fleet with escorts. This defense isn't as robust as what I've tested against in the past, and Xenon capital ships are weaker than they used to be, so I've scaled back my testing assets to match. I gave myself a budget of 110 million credits as measured by the custom game creation screen. I also restricted myself to Argon assets, just to keep the test focused on what should theoretically be a fairly average and representative set of ships and equipment. Within the Argon lineup, I wanted to test 3 fleets: all destroyers, carrier plus fighters, and carrier plus fighters plus destroyers. In the past, carriers and fighters have always overwhelmingly outperformed all destroyer fleets in these tests, and hybrid fleets have never been more than the sum of their parts. In other words, if the fighters score 100 and the destroyers score 20, the hybrid fleet could be expected to score 60. And with the simple pre-9.0 combat system, there was never any reason to pick the 20 or the 60 over the 100. So my questions here are, first, has the balance of power changed? And second, have these changes introduced any justification for bringing any fleet other than the top performer? So, let's look at our contestants. The all-destroyer fleet is 6 Behemoth E's with large tracking turrets and medium flak turrets. The flak is self-explanatory, and the tracking missiles are very important. Heavy guided missiles are the new version of the infamous heavy torpedo. They can only be fired from large turrets on capital ships, which makes it harder to deploy them in large numbers than the heavy torpedo was, but still, every 20 seconds, each launcher fires a 2-missile salvo that deals almost 17,000 damage, and that damage is pretty much guaranteed to land if the missiles are fired from travel drive. Add all that up, and just the missiles will deal over 200,000 damage to the fleet's first target before it can even fire back, which is obviously a huge advantage when you're fighting small numbers of large targets. So, the tracking turrets were a no-brainer, and the rest of the Behemoth loadout is just standard stuff. I used the attack with commander role plus priority orders to manage them in combat. Now, the fighter fleet. It operated out of a Colossus E, super basic, nothing to see there. The fighters I chose were the Nova Vanguard and the Eclipse Vanguard, 50 of each. Both of those ships got a dedicated missile launcher slot in this update, making them a little better than they used to be, but they're both still pretty close to average. The Novas were mainly for anti-fighter duty, with pulse lasers and light smart missiles. The Eclipses were the bombers, with plasma cannons and light torpedoes. The light torpedo is the only fighter weapon that can interrupt capital shield recharge, so it is basically required if you want to use fighters to attack capital ships. I managed my fighters using the position defense command, plus priority orders for the Eclipse Wing. The Combined Arms fleet, unsurprisingly, was a combination of the other two. The Colossus was the fleet commander. For anti-capital duty, I kept 3 of the exact same behemoths set to bombard, and I gave each of them 7 eclipses on attack. The behemoth weapons interrupt shield recharge, which allowed the eclipses to use rockets instead of torpedoes. I'm not convinced rockets are actually better, but they're different and can really only be used by combined arms doctrines, so I figured I'd try them. Then for anti-fighter duty, I brought along 40 Novas on position defense. There we go, those were my 3 fleets. Each one had to destroy all the Xenon capital ships and all their escorts. I ran each fleet 3 times, and I judged the runs based on losses and completion time. Here are the results. The all-destroyer fleet got wrecked. It lost all 3 runs. In 2 runs, it did manage to destroy all the Xenon capital ships, but the survivors got finished off by the Xenon escorts. In the 3rd run, it didn't even get through all the capital ships. So overall, this was a pretty weak showing, although it was still much better than 6 behemoths would have performed in 8.0. The fighter fleet did very well, very consistently. It won all 3 runs, with an average completion time of 12 minutes and an average mortality rate of less than 10%. The time only varied from the average by 1 minute, and the losses only varied by about 1%. Self-explanatory results right there. Then there was the hybrid fleet. It also won all 3 runs, coming in second in both categories with an average completion time of 13 minutes and an average mortality rate of 16%. The interesting thing here is that it was the least consistent out of the 3. In the first run, I let my bombers just follow the destroyers into combat, which led to an asynchronous engagement and 2 dead behemoths. In the second run, I kept the bombers docked until just before the engagement, which let them sync up their first attack runs with the destroyers, leading to 0 dead behemoths and a decent completion time. Then in the third run, I timed the bomber deployment even better, which gave me my fastest completion time and lowest losses out of all the fleets and all the runs. So, what I'm getting out of all this is that if you're just leaving your fleets under full AI control or using simple commands, the balance of power has not changed. Fighters are still overwhelmingly dominant in high-attention combat. But if you're willing to click some extra buttons, and you do it correctly, you can outperform fighters using a combined arms doctrine. Or, to put it a different way, fleet performance in 9.0 is actually somewhat skill-based. Obviously, that depends on these test results being representative, which I absolutely cannot guarantee, but if it's true, it's awesome. Aside from timelines and early game dogfighting, X4 almost never rewards player skill. Player knowledge? Yes. Player skill? No. And that's always been a major barrier to my personal enjoyment of the game. So, if this holds true for other fleets in other scenarios, I personally will be very happy with this update. But, of course, that's just me. I'm very curious to hear what you all think. If you've tried the update, do you think that these fleets in this scenario are representative of high-attention combat overall? If you haven't tried the update, do these results make you excited or worried for the full release? Do you think X4 should even have skill-based challenges? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you'll tune in next time. And until then, this is Captain Snuggles, signing off.